his nipples.
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back once again. And today I am in a much better mood than I was in my previous upload because today I have in front of me another budgetary knife. However, this one is actually made very, very well, and I don't have any shit to talk about it. And that's a good thing. It's a refreshing thing because I got to tell you, I'm still seething a little bit over that dog turd that I reviewed on the last video. It still bothers me, and it was starting to make me lose hope for button locks. Honestly, that was the Pyrite with its garbage blade and mediocre action and blah everything. This thing has it's kind of given me hope that there is the ability to make a very, very low-priced, good, high-quality knife that functions as well as it's designed. So it's not just about looks, even though, yes, here the looks I think are very, very attractive. It seems to do everything the way that you would want it to do in a knife that would be more expensive than it is. And that's the tricky part. That's where that CJRB fell apart, because when they were making the base models in the steel frames and the plain blades and everything, people were going nuts over it because it was a $50 knife, and it compared favorably to other knives that were $50. This is a different situation. Here is a knife that looks really, really good. It looks much more expensive than it is, and it feels more expensive than it is. It is definitely punching up, that's for sure. And I'm really happy to see that, because after that disappointment and after seeing a lot of very budget-oriented knives coming out this year that either weren't very exciting or just didn't live up to the hype or didn't really offer you anything particularly special, it's easy to get disappointed. So anyway, let's go ahead and hop into this and forget everything else that's going on out there. This, my friends, is the Remette WD107. And this is unique for a few different things. And let's talk about the price first. Get that out of the way. If you're shopping on Amazon, it's $189. Amazon is the main retailer that Remette relies on. As a matter of fact, when Remette contacts you to review their products, they will send it to you from Amazon, not from Remette's own warehouse, not from the factory, not from a distributor. It's even coming from Amazon. So they've put all their eggs pretty much in one basket. I have seen, after looking online, that there have been a couple of other retailers that have carried their brand in general, but Amazon really is where all of their sales are coming from. So if you're looking at getting one, that would be the place to do it. Now, I don't have a lot of history for you here to discuss because the brand is really, really new. Yes, it's a China brand. I don't have anything particularly exciting to discuss with you on that. So before we get into the TLDW, I just want to give you some close-up looks at the design and at the finish and at how everything is fitted together. Ignore all the goopy lube that's inside of the frame there. Anything that's coming from overseas is going to have a tremendous amount of lubrication. They don't want anything to rust or corrode, because God knows how long it's going to take to make it all the way to its destination. But the fitment of everything is really, really good. The integration of the carbon fiber into the titanium bolsters is really good. There's a little gap right there that I just noticed, and right up there, but that's only really when it's under magnification. This is what my naked eye sees right now when I'm looking inside the camera. And you really, I see that one a little bit, but I don't even see that one at all. But under magnification, sure, you can find little flaws. And they're using a type of shredded carbon fiber. It's not the finest finishing I've ever seen. I would have loved to have seen them gone up a grit or two on this, but it's serviceable. It works great. It looks just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not feeling any rough spots anywhere on it, so that's what's really the most important. They did a nice job texturizing the button lock. It looks like it's going to be an axis lock because the way they did this cutout, it looks like it's supposed to get pulled back and pushed forward, but it doesn't. It is a straight up button lock with a good amount of tension, by the way, on the button, which gives you the feeling of the detent, and it gives you that little bit of friction as it's opening and closing, and it's not an obscene amount of friction. Now here's one of these special things. I mentioned earlier that there was some unique things about this knife. One of them is going to be the finish of this blade. They're calling this a pearlescent finish. Now this is some sort of coating that they're applying to the blade. It's not just for looks apparently, but there is supposedly some function to this as well. And that is going to be a hydrophobic element. That means water that gets onto the blade is just going to bead and roll right off like a freshly waxed car. And you'll get this interesting kind of almost rainbow hue when light dances across it. Natural light is better than my studio lights. All of my lights here are diffused, so you're not really going to see that. I wonder if it'll show up on camera with a direct light, like a flashlight. Let's find out. Hey guys, sorry for the interruption, but I promise I will make this very, very brief. I want to thank those of you that have joined and become channel members. You are helping to support the channel and helping to continue the growth. And if you've been considering supporting the channel in any way, shape, or form, because I do not have channel sponsors, I don't shill anybody's products, I don't get paid for anything, I don't do affiliate links, so everything is completely self-funded. If you'd like to help out and watch the channel grow and get more great content coming your way, please do consider becoming a member. All right. Yeah, I mean, I could see it a little bit, but I don't know if it's going to translate to video very well. But there's a little bit of a rainbow hue to it. And it's not like the look of a discolored blade, because that would bother me. It doesn't have that look. It's something that you could tell is in the finish that's applied to the blade. Now let's talk about let's get into the TLDW. We'll talk about the pros and the cons. TLDW stands for too long, didn't watch. If you just want the highlights, the highlight reel of the video, this will be it. So here we'll be discussing the pros and the cons, and I'll try to keep the individual commentary to a minimum and save that for the end of the video after the specs are done with too, and give you my personal thoughts on the individual parts of the knife and the knife as a whole. All right, starting with the pros. First pro is the action. It's a nice, fast, and smooth action without an overly strong detent or detent feel, I should say. Good amount of pressure on that lock so that you've got a really nice feeling action. Next pro is the overall design of this. I love the seashell scallops here. I love the checkering that's been done on the button lock. It feels really, really nice. It's not grating in any way, but it feels nice. I like the kind of modern design that you've got going on here in the shape of the bolster. That is quite unique. I love that there's a cutout for a lanyard. There are lots of people out there that still like using lanyards. I don't really feel at this knife you have a need for it because you don't have a stupid deep carry pocket clip, so you're able to actually grab the knife and extract it from your pocket easily. And it's not an overly slick feeling design, so you won't need it for traction to get a hold of it either. Overall, the ergonomics are good. That's another pro. I think it feels nice in the hand. And while this really isn't a finger choil, you are able to easily choke up on it and get a little bit more precision control over your blade. I think people are going to like that a lot. Another pro, which is, it's going to be a little bit of a weird one, but this knife is less prone to blade bounce than most other button locks. And I think that's due to the additional spring tension that button is under. It's a little bit easier to get the timing right where you're not holding down the button, because if you're holding down the button, then it's easy to get the blade bounce. But it just seems to be a lot easier to come off that button than it is on most button locks. We'll use this piece of hot trash for an example again. See, even you saw my thumb was off the entire knife and it still bounced. I absolutely hate blade bounce. It's dangerous. It really is. It's a very easy way to get your ass cut. Another plus is the finishing. You've got a really smooth blasted finish on here that it's almost like a vapor blasted finish. It doesn't appear to be, but it's almost like it's a vapor blasted finish. And you have to get magnified to actually see that there are very slight micro milling marks in the titanium. With your naked eye, you don't see them at all. They did a really nice job on the pocket clip as well. It's nicely beveled and faceted. It has a nice architecture to it. It's not an afterthought. It looks like it was designed specifically for this knife. If I were designing it, I would have liked to have seen that same ridge going down the back spacer so that these two components matched one another. But that's just me. Everybody's a little bit different. I really dig the scalloped look that they've done here with the milled lines. Very, very cool. It really is more or less a starburst pattern coming from the thumb studs. And the thumb studs are really nicely machined as well. They spent some time. They didn't just give you cheap-ass, basic thumb studs. They spent some time designing it and then machined them very, very well. I think they did a really great job. So good, in fact, that it made me stutter. All right. Now the TLDW is done for the pros. Now let's talk about the cons. I really don't feel any cons. The thumb studs, there's a little bit of a sharp edge there. Just a little bit. I don't think it's enough to bother most people, but somebody with very sensitive skin, very sensitive fingers might actually feel that. Another con for me is it's only one method of deployment. You only have the thumb stud, so you only have thumb flick or reverse flick. I would have really liked to have seen a channel or a window cut into it so you could have flicked it from the back more easily. And I would have really loved to have seen this in a flipper. As a matter of fact, I would give up everything else if it just had thumb studs and a flipper, an actual real flipper tab, not a stupid front flipper, but a flipper tab and the thumb stud deployment I think would be perfect for this knife. So if they ever do a V2, I would love to see them do it as a flipper. I think that would be very cool. But I wouldn't suggest it as a flipper only. We hear from a lot of people a lot of times talking about how they do not like flipper exclusive knives. that they want to have another way of opening it besides a flipper tab. So I'd like to see it both ways. And I think there's a way that you can incorporate the shape of a flipper tab to complement the geometric shapes that you're seeing here in the bolster and in other parts of the design. I think that they could make it work very, very well. But overall, the design is really good. No other cons I can really think of, and that's weird for a knife in this price range. Again, $189, less than $200. And I have nothing really to call out and complain about. And I'm kind of on a roll after this thing where it's easy for me to just go, I wish that was different. I wish that was different. Change this. Don't do that. And I'm not feeling that here. I am very, very impressed with this. And the reason I was able to get this here under the lens is because recently I had reviewed the Remette Peacock. And that one, for a sub $30 knife, had remarkably good characteristics to it that shocked and surprised me. I didn't like the material being used for the handle on that knife, and I was honest about that and called that out. It looked and it felt cheap, so I didn't have high hopes for that knife, but yet it functioned really, really, really well. So when Remette reached back out and said, hey, would you like to have a look at the titanium version, or not version, that makes it sound like it's a Peacock. Would you like to take a look at our titanium model? And they sent me a picture. I was like, oh, absolutely. I would love to. I think that thing is really, really cool. So thank you to Remette for making sure this got into my hands. I am very, very pleased with it. And I'm going to tell you right now, if this were a knife, if for some reason, I don't know, tomorrow I went broke and homeless and I had to sell most of my knives, and somehow this was one of only a handful that I had remaining, I wouldn't feel too bad about having this in my collection, or should say in my rotation to carry. This is a knife that I could see myself using quite a lot. It feels really, really good in the hand, and it's got a really attractive finish to the blade. That M390 blade is going to be protected somewhat with that hydrophobic finish. And the action is great. It's got a little bit of fidget factor to it. See, there's one of the few times I was able to bounce the blade. And I have no nits to pick with it. I think it's a really well executed design. And they could have probably put a much higher price tag on it, and I think people would still feel the same about it. If this was $250, $275, $300, I think most people would still give this a positive review because it's just done so well. Now let's get into the specs for this knife. Overall length of 7.92 inches, which puts it in that medium to compact category. Your blade is 3.28 inches in length in M390 with the pearlescent hydrophobic finish. Blade thickness is 120 thousandths of an inch thick. If I can get it to stand up, I don't know. It's just a little bit smaller than a lot of the knives I typically carry. 3.5 inch is a really, really good size for me. My sweet spot is between 3.5 and 3.75 inches. And while this is a little bit smaller than that at 3.28 inches, I really like it. It's ground very, very well, comes to a nice thin behind the edge feeling. So you've got good geometry going on here for good cutting. I really like the swedge that they've done on here. They did a nice job in the overall layout of the blade, the overall design. It looks good. It feels good. I've only cut a couple of pieces of paper. I'm not going to lie to you and say I put it through the gauntlet of tests and it's a super stellar performer. But for the little bit of stuff that I did with it, it performed just fine. It's the exact same kind of performance I would want out of most any EDC knife that is not task specific. Actually, I haven't tried this, have I? Just, flicking it out while holding the lock to see how the wrist flick feels. And it's not too bad. You do have to be careful when you're releasing the lock on the open because, again, you've got a lot of tension on that lock, so Yeah, I like how it feels, man. I really do. I like how the action feels. I like how the ergonomics feel in my hand. I like the balance of it. I really like the weight, which I don't have the weight here. Hold on one second, and I will grab my scale, and we'll find out together. Okay, back with the scale. All right, 3.5 ounces. That ain't bad at all. That's certainly going to be the perfect weight for most people. A lot of people that I talk to when I talk about EDC knives, they say that their goal weight for an EDC knife is under 4 ounces or under 4.5 ounces. And that allows them to feel like they're not burdened by the knife in any way. It could be worn with dress pants. It could be worn with lightweight shorts. It could be worn with jeans. It really doesn't matter. I think it might still be a little bit hefty to wear in like running pants or sweatpants or something like that. But it's very, very lightweight in the hand. Feels really good, but it still feels like it has some substance to it. It doesn't feel like, ew, it just feels cheap and weird. No, it really is that nice balance in between the two. And I got to tell you, the blade shape is fantastic. I wish the tip dropped down a little bit lower, because you've got a little drop point there. The way they've ground this, it almost looks like a spear point. And when I get to those, I like to have my tip right below my pivot point. So, because I like to be able to pinch grip it and then slice open boxes or slice things like that. And with this, you've still got lots of room before you get to the tip. But overall, Remette, great job. I think this is a pretty damn fantastic knife. And for somebody looking for an inexpensive knife that they feel that they can carry every day and use, and it can handle the abuse, M390 is good for that. And it's going to be an attractive knife. It doesn't look like some cheap POS that, just screams can't afford a better knife. This is going to look like a much more expensive knife, and it's going to feel like a more expensive knife. And I do believe the performance is going to match up to what most people are going to want for an EDC style knife. So again, I only have pros and I don't really have cons about this knife. I think they did a fantastic job all the way around. For those that are looking for something a little bit more pimpy, this isn't going to be it. It kind of has a basic finish to it with the blasted bolster and the matte finish on the carbon fiber. But it wouldn't take very much, honestly, to have these bolsters and the back spacer and the clip anodized, and then maybe polish out the scales. And if you wanted something that's a little bit more pimpy, I think that you've got something here that you could do that with. It's a little bit pimpy on the blade. It's almost like a frosty finish, an icy cool frosted finish that actually has an interesting property, which is that hydrophobic finish, which allows moisture, wetness, liquid, whatever, to bead and then just roll right off. I don't believe I've seen that offered from any other brand. It certainly didn't look like this. Very slick, very cool. All right, guys, that's my thoughts on the Remette WD107. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next video.